So let's move on to our main topic for today, which is fill in the blank here, Delawful.
You don't know what the main topic is? Nah, let me stop playing. So the main topic for today really is going to be focused on self-medication, right? So this whole, of course, like, I'm sure at this point we don't have to keep telling you what the theme of the season is, but we'll do it anyway because we want to be annoying. Theme of the season is like just wellness. So holistic wellness, everything about that, everything involved in that. And one of the huge things that we've seen people of today, the young people, even older people really, is dealing with their wellness or emotions or whatever they're going through via medication. Some of it is obviously prescribed from doctors and stuff, but we're going to focus a little more on non-prescribed medications, right? Medications that's like, yo, this is not a prescription. You just determined that you have this ailment and you've decided that, oh, I need a blunt and that's the only way that's going to help me.
Apparently the blunt saves us all from everything.
I mean, it
from
does.
Anxiety, from depression, from laziness,
pain,
from hunger, from everything.
Yeah, it's a thing. As much as, depending on where you stand on the argument, you might look at it and not take it that seriously. But it is a thing. I know a lot of athletes, NFL athletes that have tried to petition to have it not be a banned substance anymore, because it's like they're like, we're dealing with so much pain, I'd rather just smoke weed or whatever variant of it than the medications that you are actually prescribing for me, because they inject them with all kinds of things, and it's like, we think this is just a better solution. Like, can we do this? And even retired players that have said that's how they survived, or after the fact, that's how they survive.
Right. Now, before we get to the point of like self-medication, I kind of want to talk more about, like, I guess the appropriate means of getting medicated or dealing with your wellness, physical and emotional. So I guess starting with like emotional wellness, I would say typically if any of my friends came to me talking about some sort of like emotional, traumatic, like issues that they're having and like to the point where they need professional help, like my first point of entry would be like talking about maybe therapy or seeking out help from a professional that is not me, because I don't have all the answers.
Of course.
Rather than, hey, maybe try roll a blunt and see if you feel better. You know what I mean? So I will say though, like I've had like a couple friends where I've like said, oh, maybe you want to look into therapy, and I don't know what it is about this like this mental block people have for therapy. Like they don't really want to pursue that. Whereas if like one of my friends is like, oh, I have this incessant back pain or whatever, like migraines for days, I would be like, oh, go see your doctor and make sure everything is good. Yeah. I don't feel that same pushback. Where do you think that comes from? I
think that it's a stigma obviously attached to therapy. There's a stigma attached to crazy people and their therapists, not regular people. So it's like, if I'm going to see a therapist, I'm crazy. Like, I don't want to be crazy.
Like, even to this day, especially with our age group, it's so weird to me.
I think it's obviously not as strong as it was before in past generations, but I think it's still there. I think that if you tell me you're seeing a therapist, my first thought is like, oh, like, what's wrong with you? Right? And of course, like, there's obviously, like, I don't say there's always something wrong, but like, it might not be something so serious that like, but now I'm looking at you a little bit fun. And then if you do something weird again, I can imagine it somewhere in the back of my head being like, oh, but she has therapists, like maybe she like like it's just it's that whole judgment thing.
And I think it is still as strong as it was in the past when it comes to people dealing with it personally. Like I feel like people don't have an issue hearing that other people are in therapy, or like from like this objective point of view.
Of course, it's like, oh, you need therapy, good for you. Good for you.
Go. Or like, oh yeah, I can see why that person should or would. Right. But then when it becomes a personal thing, it becomes this like barrier for them, and I don't know.
It is, and I think it goes back to, even though you can be like, oh yeah, good for you, like ultimately it goes back to how you judge someone that is in therapy and how you see them as different than you. Because you even just said something now like, oh, I can see how that person is in therapy. When you say that, you're also kind of saying like, I'm not that person. A lot of times it comes with like, oh, but I'm not that, like, I'm not that bad. Mean, So if you know, like, if you have this vision of who is in therapy, a lot of times you don't see yourself as that person. So going to therapy or like even thinking about it is like, you're now more like that person. It's like we can all be like, oh, Kanye needs a therapist, but none of us wants to be like, I'm Kanye. Like,
I'm the Kanye and I'm the one who needs a therapist.
We just talked about Rema. We're like, oh, Rema and his thing. Like, any one of us can easily, right, without even putting too much thought into it without actually being professionals can be like, maybe you should talk to a therapist about whatever is going on. Well, like, we wouldn't necessarily look at our lives. Like, we have people that have lost family members and like, I mean, that, as far as we know, there's nothing deeper in his life that we know about. And like, we wouldn't look at them and be like, oh, you need a therapist, like, right off the bat.
I totally agree with you. And I mean, even beyond therapy, like when someone maybe does decide, okay, I'm going to go see a therapist, then that therapist is like, okay, whatever you're going through, I think is enough that let's look into maybe anxiety meds for you or depression meds. Then the barrier goes up even thicker. Yeah. It's like, but this person that you're trusting as a professional, whom, I mean, themselves maybe aren't prescribing, but has now referred you to a psychiatrist based off of their professional analysis.
Yeah.
You're not trusting in that. But if, like, again, a doctor is like, okay, I think you need to start taking oxycodone or whatever for your wisdom teeth getting pulled out, you're more than happy to fill that prescription.
Yeah.
Like, and I'm like, I think that barrier is definitely not just in the youth. It goes beyond the youth. And then also not just like a specific gender. It goes beyond that. But speaking as a woman of African descent, I will say that that's where I concentrate most of this block to. Like, I feel like when I speak to an African versus somebody who is like, even just a Black person I know that has gone to therapy and is unapologetic about it, or is seeking mental health treatment, whatever, is unapologetic about it, versus an African, not at all. White people, same thing. Like, I feel like that barrier isn't as pronounced.
Definitely. I think that we, for whatever, let me not say for whatever reason, but I feel like we just end up being a little bit behind everyone else on certain things, and I think that this is one of those things. Whereas, like, we are going to get there eventually because we deal with these issues. Like, I've had friends and people be like, oh, there's no depression in Nigeria, and it's like, what? Like, how can you say that out loud and really believe? But it's like, just because that's, nobody ever comes out and says I'm depressed, and there's no, like, even when they do, like, you don't take it, like, you just don't take it the same way. But it's like, people are depressed. People deal with those things. For sure. They're just told to shut up and deal with it by themselves. You
know, my theory is, though, that because, like, I guess my point a few minutes or seconds ago was the fact that, it's definitely not concentrated in one population. It's a very overarching thing.
Yeah.
But the reason I feel like it's so concentrated, this, like, block when it comes to mental health and therapy and anything along those lines, is any society that has roots in religion, I feel like is more wary of those things, because it's like, just go pray to God. It's a God thing. Like, God can help you. God can solve your issues. And I think that's just such a detriment. Like, it can work in tandem. Like, you having a religious base that you totally believe in, and that faith that you totally subscribe to, doesn't mean you can't also seek professional help.
Of course. It's this idea of, I don't know where I got this from, but somewhere, many people probably have it, but it's this idea that religion and science are never really against each other. Yeah. Like, primarily, like, even people be like, the Big Bang, I'm like, I don't see how the Big Bang disproves one thing. Like, it's like, all these things work in tangent. Like, if you believe in God, if you have a religion, a lot of times, like, the way I think about it, and I've been told to think about it, is that God gave us all these things, right? But then he gave us a lot of evidence and, like, allowed us, like, go figure out something by yourself. So then that's what science is. Science is us figuring out things that are already there.
I will say.
So it's like, you have to sometimes, like, accept, like, it's not, when you discover something, it's not like opposite of what
I will say, though, that there are a lot of religions that are more fundamental in nature and that have a lot more strict lines. Like, I think it's the Mormon religion. I don't want to speak on any religions, but there's a religion, for instance, that's like, the earth is only 7,000 years old. Period, point blank.
Yeah.
Anything that you're seeing with the dinosaur skeletons, whatever, that's all fake.
Yeah.
Like, it's all conspiracy. So I feel like, there is this huge swath of religious people that do think that science can work in tandem with the other, but then there's the few, or the many, I don't know, who are like, nah, because the way my Bible is written is like, no, there's things that I can't subscribe to.
Yeah, no, I mean, you're right. So that is a different conversation going into different religions, but I definitely understand the point of, like, more religious cultures tend to be slower in accepting science and
these things.
Exactly. And if you're listening, like, it's something that you just have to deal with. Like, and a lot of times too, like, when you're in those situations where, like, you're getting prescribed the medication, like, if you're being honest with yourself, I feel like you can kind of see it a little bit. You might be scared of the medication. You might be scared of what it will do, because there are side effects. Like, it's not a simple decision to just say, yes, give it to me, I'll take it every day. It's a process of figuring out what works best for you, and, you know, dealing with this, like, side effects and whatever. But usually I want to say it's worth it. I haven't ever been on medication, so I don't know. I'm not speaking from experience, but I feel like it's worth it if you are really dealing with stuff.
Yeah, which then brings me to, because people have such barriers, I think that's where self-medication comes into play. It's like, I can handle this better myself. Like, if I go to a therapist or a psychiatrist, they're just going to prescribe me anxiety medication that's super addictive anyway, or whatever the case, whatever, you know, biases they have against those things that they're trying to not use. So then they end up, like, you know, we all hear, like we said earlier at the top of this segment, that weed is the miracle cure to everything. So let me go try that.
Yeah, and I'm not going to tell you that weed is not the miracle, because I don't know that it's not. But I do know that a lot of the stigma that was around weed years ago is coming off of it. In the presidential debate, since we're talking about, or the VP debate, actually, I remember Kamala actually was like, I don't think they were asking about this, but because that was the other thing about the debate, not to get off track, but there was a lot of questions where it was like, they asked them this, and they were like, I'm not talking about that, I'm just going to talk about something completely different. They did that a couple times. They were like, oh, the presidents are old. Have you guys talked about the fact they might die? No one responded to that. Anyway, but she made a comment where she basically was like, like, if Biden wins, they're going to try to legalize marijuana, like, on the federal level. They will try to release people, blah, blah, blah. And it's like crazy that a VP candidate would say that. I remember 5, 7, 8 years ago arguing with uncles and aunts about weed is not bad for you. It's like alcohol is worse. And like literally them looking at you like you're smoking now.
I remember in health class, weed was the gateway drug. Like all of the other ones were the bad ones, but weed was the one that can get you to those bad ones. So it's just as bad.
I wonder if they've changed that.
I wonder too, because it's just like, think about how many kids I'm sure like might be prescribed marijuana like, for whatever issues and ailments they're going through. So I would think or hope you never know though.
You never know.
A whole half of the country that's completely on the other side of me.
It's still an argument. But I think that it's one of those things where, going back to what we're talking about, self-medicating, people look for solutions to their problems. Sometimes I can't say it's the wrong place, because again, I don't know, it might really work for some of those things, but you have to be careful because some of those issues are not being solved that way. You're just kind of sweeping them under the rug, right? Like, it's like, that's not to kind of fall into the whole, it's a gateway drug, but that's what those stronger, more addictive drugs are for a lot of people sometimes, is you have really deep-rooted issues. This drug wipes it off the face of the earth for a day or for an hour, and that's why you do it. And it's like, it's not fixing the problem, because after you lose your high, the problem is there and you have to do it again. And that's of course, addiction is another thing, but that's why you keep going to it as well, is that you're self-medicating, you're trying to fix a problem with the wrong solution.
So as much as weed is seen as this like thing nowadays, especially within our generation, I would say that's just harmless. Like, why even make it a deal? I do want to say I think there is still a cautionary aspect to it, in the sense like alcohol is legal, alcohol is fine, but there's people who abuse that shit all the time too. So like, as much as people want to act like weed is completely fine, if you're doing anything too much, still look into it. Like, especially or for the wrong reasons, like you're kind of touching on, or you were just now. It's like weed, if you're using it to regulate your emotions, and trying to use it as a form of escapism, then maybe it's not a healthy relationship that you have with it, even if it isn't like a full detriment to your liver, like alcohol is. Like, it's still
just because it doesn't kill you doesn't mean it's good for you, right? Like, just because it's not the thing that's gonna kill you or like make something super bad happen. And going back to everything we talk about all these episodes, it's still not dealing with your issue a lot of times, right? Like, you still have that issue that the quicker you get to trying to figure it out, that issue itself, the quicker you be past it or through it or whatever. So it's like, self-medicating. How do you
feel about weed though, personally, like in your day-to-day?
How do I feel about it? Like, do I think it's bad?
Like, are you like, your kids, if you find out, like, if you find a blunt in your
I feel like that's a super like different situation. But if I see, I feel like it's something that I would be concerned about, mostly from the perspective that we're talking about. From the perspective, like, one, I don't want you self-medicating. Like, I don't want you thinking that this is a solution to any problems. But also from the perspective of, I don't know if you can handle this. Like,
so going back to let's say you find out it's recreational. You're cool with it?
Back to what I'm saying. I still don't know if you can handle it. Like, if you were saying weed, to me it's the same thing. If I see my 16-year-old with an empty like liquor bottle in his room, I'm concerned. And I'm not saying that like I'm concerned like we're about to like everything is gonna over. Don't ever drink, don't ever smoke again. But it's like I want to understand how you're using it, and I want to make sure you're doing it in the safest way possible. Like I don't want you binge drink, even though I know that's what you're doing at 16. I don't want my 16-year-old binge drinking. Like, that's a concern.
Again, not to go too far into, like, what you would do with your future kids that aren't here yet. How about you? Like, are you the type that would self-medicate with weed? Like, if you're having, like, a down day or, like, anything
never.
like that? No,
I don't, like, even alcohol, I try my best to stay away from, like, in the sense of I try not to drink by myself, like, things like that. I just try to... You know,
it's a recreational thing.
Exactly. Only, I try to do it as a not even as a social thing.
That's what I mean by that.
I try to do it as a social thing. Like I don't want to drink by myself. Like never. I will say I have drank by myself, but when I drink, like it's usually what is like those like wine coolers. That's like I'm not saying that's juice, that's juice, but it is juice.
That's paired nicely with the sandwich.
So I'll do that once in a while, but I'm not like randomly getting liquor and like, oh, let me mix myself a drink or let me take a shot. You know, take the edge off. Like people be saying, like never doing that. That's to me like because it's just a slippery slope. Like okay, you do it once, if it works out for you that time, like you're gonna go back to it, or why wouldn't you go back to it? I can't see what would make me stop doing it. I don't think I have an obsessive personity, but I also don't want to find out with something like that.
Feel you, girl.
How about yourself?
Feel you, girl. Sorry. Feel you, boy.
Now you want me to do my eyebrows? No, thank you.
Inside joke. No, for me, I feel the same. It's like really a social thing for me, strictly. Like I don't like feeling dependent to anything, like just my person, like even like a coffee, like I would never be the type that like I need coffee every morning before I do anything. Once I feel like I'm going down that path, I'm stopping. Like it's just something where like I just like feeling like I have a handle on whatever is going in me. So socially, sure, that doesn't mean like I'm the most responsible person. Like I've gotten excessively drunk, like it happens, so like I'm not saying that people can't slip up here and there. I just I just can't see myself being the type of person that just rolls a blunt and like takes a walk.
And like literally that's to me, and it's funny because I feel like a lot of people that smoke a lot, like that's what they do is like literally I know someone that like for no reason just at home chilling, he's just smoking. Like wait, why are you smoking? Like just smoking randomly all the time, like one after, and like that's becomes a dependency.
Not for me, but I also understand people who are like, it's not hurting me, it's not doing me any harm. It's just like for me, it's like if I was really into, I don't know what else could pacify you to that extent. Like I really love give me
I cannot
watching
think of
TV
anything.
as a form of escapism, or like I don't know, like I can't think of anything
watching
right now.
TV is an interesting comparison because I could see like you can watch TV all day by yourself and it's not really a big deal. But I don't know if it's what I'm saying. But I get where you're going. Yeah,
like because for people who do that, it's like the weed doesn't feel like they're in an altered state of mind or anything. It's just like it's a calming for them. Just like if I'm binging a television show
maybe
for
someone that drinks
6
tea.
hours ahead. Oh yeah. So if I'm binging a show for 6 hours at a time, or like drinking tea excessively because that's just what calms me down. Like chamomile tea is my favorite, whatever. And like for that person, it's like I'm not. It doesn't change my state of being. Like I don't feel like I'm dependent on this thing. It's not a crutch. It's just something I do to pacify myself and make me feel good.
I mean I get it. It's just like I said, especially I have to speak for me most of the time, but it's like for me it's like I know that I would never want to be in that situation. Like it's just too scary, it's too dangerous, it's a slippery slope. And as much as I know now that weed is not this like evil thing that like you're gonna like you smoke weed once you're gonna become a crackhead, like I know that's not the case, right? Exactly. But like it's almost just kind of like it just opens up the possibilities of things that you'll do. So I don't want to call it a gateway because gateway is too specific. Like we know that's maybe not the case, but it's just try to control everything in moderation. Period.
I agree.
And everything like with good reasons and intentions, and try not to associate things together as well. right? Like that's kind of why I don't do like the drinking by itself, because like I don't want to associate me drinking with me watching a basketball game, because am I gonna drink every basketball game? Like what's like then I'm an alcoholic before I know it.
I guess I understand that. Like fair point. Like once you start pairing a substance with anything you do, it just becomes second nature. Like you're grabbing for that beer when you're about to start your favorite show just because that's what you do out of habit. Yeah. So I can understand people who are like, I need to separate the two. It can't
definitely. And even with emotions, you know, like if you every time you're feeling a little sad, you like just drink a little bit, like or you smoke a little bit, like exactly, or stressed out, like something that's not even that like huge of a deal, but once you start pairing them, it becomes a habit. It becomes something you do all the time. And I'm not saying that becomes addiction, but you're walking the path to addiction, however slow. So yeah, no, self-medication is bad. Don't do it.
Yeah. I guess I can co-sign that, I guess.
Yeah, and as far as stronger stuff, I mean, I think it's obvious.
Oh yeah, right? We're not like, talking about anything else here.
What's stronger stuff? Don't even use. Why are you using anything stronger than weed? Like, are you trying to kill yourself?
Yeah, please.
Pills, all those things. I know people out there like, but the what's the thing? The syrup that people used to drink. Like codeine. People just try all these. Oh my god! Like I just don't know why people try these things. I know it's for fun sometimes, but it's like.
Outside of fun, like I said, like sometimes people just feel like they need to regulate their emotions somehow, and this is the best way to do it.
Yeah, and it is dangerous, especially with young people, because back to your question about like your 16-year-old child, I do think that there is something to that, at least in my opinion, of a certain age. People are different, so there's no one number, but just having the maturity to be able to handle certain medications or substances, like you can't handle it at a certain age or a certain maturity, because you're doing it and you're going to overdo it, or like just do it the wrong way. So it's always try to be above whatever you're doing. Like don't just jump into it. I know a lot of like, I can imagine high school kids, like when I was in high school, people were smoking weed. Like I'm sure now like weed is like water, like weed is like a cigarette, like, but even in high school, like, yeah, like it's just, it's weird, but everything is in moderation. Yeah. I think that's what it comes down to. Yeah. Right.
I agree.
All right. You want to do shout outs?
Sure.
Yes.
I already did my biggest shout out earlier in the episode to the fly. The fly right there on Mike Pence's head. I feel like I always say my shout outs or my basketball takes for shout outs, but
that's okay.
The person I want to shout out today is definitely Jimmy Butler. I mainly want to shout him out because he has haters out here, my co-host included, who speaks recklessly, talking about my guy can't score, anything beyond that 25-30, but he proved you wrong twice now.
It's so funny because I really love Jimmy Butler, but somehow I'm now the hater.
He has definitely underestimate him.
I definitely underestimated what he was going to do in his finals for sure. Because, like I said, for them to win, he needs to score like 40. And like you said, he's done it twice. Yeah. So like they won those games.
And both games they won. Because now imagine if Dragic was still in there.
Honestly, like I'm just so thankful that he's not there, because I don't want to say the Heat would win, but it would be
it could be a 7-game situation easy if Dragic
honestly was there. As it's going now, I think that if it goes to Game 7, the Heat are going to win. I don't know if that. I don't think that's a hot take, because they would have won like 3 games. They would have won 2 games in a row.
No, they had a break in between the two, because the one they won was without Bam first.
And so they'd have won 2 games in a row. I think that their confidence would be super high. Unless
do you mean if they win today, they would have won 2 games in a row?
Yeah. I'm trying to think of if it gets to Game 7, they'd have won 2 in a row. I thought you meant already. No. Okay. Yeah, so if they get to Game 7, they've won 2 in a row. They have momentum. They're feeling good. They're feeling confident. They're like, yo, we have the Lakers. After they won the first game, Jimmy Butler was talking about the Lakers are in trouble. I was like, Jimmy Butler, calm down. Like, they're that confident. So if they actually win 2 games in a row, they're going to be like,
I don't want to see LeBron lose. Okay, guys, I love the Heat. I love Jimmy Butler. I love Bam. I love that whole franchise, honestly, as you guys know at this point.
They'll be back.
I do not want to see LeBron lose.
Yeah, they'll come back in a year or two.
I care less about Lakers winning. I don't care at all. I want LeBron to win, though.
Hater. Okay, shout out to Jimmy Butler. He has actually performed incredibly well, and he deserves all the accolades and praise.
For sure.
I have 2 shout outs. Okay. I have some secret shout outs. My shout outs to Rema and Fireboy. They both made it to the FIFA 21 soundtrack. Oh, so shout out to them. We're here.
Rema stays getting placed on these playlists and such.
He does. But let me tell you this. I don't know, for people that don't know somehow, the FIFA soundtrack is literally the best soundtrack consistently.
I can co-sign
year
that.
to year.
And I don't even
year to year.
FIFA.
The FIFA, I don't know who's in the head of that or in control of that, but they have the best, like, songs I've never heard, and I'm like, oh, I love this song.
There was one year I hate that I can't remember. I want to say maybe 2009 or something. There's one like classic FIFA soundtrack. The only reason I know is my brother had gotten it that year, and every song on that soundtrack to this day, if we hear it, we lose our minds.
Like, I'll be out randomly in the store and I'll hear a song and I'm like,
that's for
why
FIFA.
not? Oh, there's a FIFA song. Like, I don't think FIFA has ever missed as far back as I can remember. So making it on there is actually a pretty big deal. So shout out to them. And then I want to shout out, I probably should have researched the name first, but I believe her name is Tomi Adeyemi. Have you heard of her?
I think
she's an author. She wrote the book The Children of Blood and Bones. Have you heard of that book?
Yes, I have.
Yeah, so I just heard about the book like a couple of weeks ago because people don't tell me stuff.
I don't read those, so I heard about it and then I didn't buy the book.
Loser. Well, I mean, I don't read either. I listen to my books because
I shouldn't be saying this.
That's a pretty good experience. You should listen to it. It's actually really pretty good to listen to. It's really good, and I think you would like it too, by the way. Do you like Harry Potter and all that kind of stuff?
No.
I'm
not really a fantasy
I mean, it's not
person.
as lame as Harry Potter, but it is more fantasy. It's like magic, but it's really good. It's a really good book. It's like, the characters are Yoruba, and like it's just a Nigerian. It's a really good story. I haven't
do
finished
this
it
thing
yet.
where I'm like, I always hear about like some Nigerian author or artist, whatever, especially author though, that has written a book, and I'm like, oh, that's on the list. I need to start reading, and I'm gonna start with these books by these Nigerian authors, and then I don't do it.
Yeah, if you're not really into fantasy, I wouldn't say start with this one, but it's a really good book. I'm sure it's gonna be a movie like in a couple of years. Like it's gonna be a blockbuster movie on the. Let me not say Harry Potter.
No, speak that.
I'm not gonna say Harry Potter because that's super high, but it's gonna be on the level.
No, let's go for it. Let's go for it.
It's that good. Hunger Games, like it's one of those.
It's gonna be on the level of Harry Potter. Let's manifest it for her.
So shout out to her on writing a book that's getting so much attention and love. I want to say it was a #1 in New York, but I don't know if that's true. I'm pretty sure it was in New York Times bestsellers.
The reason I even heard about it, it was like a commercial for a podcast I used to listen to,
really?
Two Black Girls or whatever, and that was not the name of the podcast. Just the podcast.
There were two black girls.
Right. And they kept advertising it, and I was like, oh, this Nigerian artist, I need to look into it. But they did describe it as a fantastical book. So
I actually didn't even literally. I heard about the book. I saw that she was Nigerian, and I was like, I asked a friend, I was like, is this book good? They're like, it's good. I got it. So then when I'm listening, I started hearing stuff about magic. I was like, magic?
That's
like
not what you expected.
I was not like Children of Blood and Bones. I'm not even thinking anything about magic, but it's really good. It's gonna take me a while to finish it, but just if you're into reading, read it. Shout out to her. Anything else?
No, nothing
else. All right, I think that's it. Thanks for listening to the episode. Thanks for watching. Yeah, check out our videos on YouTube. Hopefully you guys have seen us disturbing you everywhere. We're there.
Subscribe everywhere.
Yes, exactly. All right, peace.
Bye.